Title: You need to be smacked and smacked hard. In my senior year of high school, a boy not named James who sat behind me decided instead of listening to our teacher's lecture, it would be an excellent time to start quietly chanting at me, "Dyke." To, I guess, embarrass me. I was a mostly quiet, artsy and quirky girl who had no interest in any guy in my small, rural hometown. I got teased and bullied, as any weird kid in a rural town would be. It wouldn't last long because while I was quiet and liked to keep to myself, I was not meek nor was I afraid of local dipshits. So, I ignored it at first, giving the option to our teacher to say something. Because this teacher was a rugged, cowboy type who built his own house and had a missing middle finger, nobody was quite sure why. Rumors ranged from shop accident to the war, giving him, literally, no fucks to give. There were rumors of what happened in his office, one of the few teachers in the school who had won because he negotiated it, in terms of disciplining mouthy students. It would almost be rude of me to do something before giving him the chance. On the third and most confident utterance of Dyke, with a very confident giggle and without looking directly at James, first spoke over my teacher's lecture in a loud enough for everyone to hear voice and very calmly said, "James, you need to be smacked and smacked hard." The room went silent. Then my teacher spoke, proudly. "If you need a paddle, I got one in my office you can use." Title: Husband gets petty, wife retaliated. I have ADHD. As such, I often forget to put my contacts case away after I finish using it. My husband tried to teach me a lesson by putting it away for me in a high, hard-to-see place. Especially hard to see when I don't have my contacts in. So, in retaliation, while I was folding all of our laundry, I dried all of his work pants in the dryer so they would fit a little more snugly and buttoned all of the buttons and all of his pants, shorts so he would have to unbutton them before he put them on. Title: Don't like my dog. How about 5K plus littering fine? So, I live in a new neighborhood where a lot of the houses are still being built. The construction company is good quality, but they just throw their trash everywhere. The city doesn't care, unless it ends up on someone else's property, and it has many, many times. Every couple of weeks, my dad and I go out and pick up whatever has blown onto our property, no complaints. In addition, they leave rusty nails, leftover wood materials just on the sidewalk. So, a couple weeks ago our builder, the guy in charge of all the construction projects, actually moves in a couple houses down. I'm walking my dog, who decides he's going to poop on the builder's neighbor's lawn. As I'm picking his poop up, the builder comes over and starts berating me, saying things like, "Dog pee kills grass." It wasn't pee, it was poo, that I had already picked up at this point, I better not see him do that again, etc. Going on and on about his neighbor's precious lawn, acting as if he owned it. A grown 50-plus man lecturing a teenage girl about her dog. I just said okay, and left, red face, and fuming inside. I hate conflict, and I'm super introverted and socially anxious. Title: Neighbors shoot themselves in the foot with lies. We decided to extend our property as we need more space for an office due to working from home more. We approached neighbors to make sure they were fine with it as we are semi-detached. We bring up every potential issue and they say it's fine, they have no objections. Pay for plans and submit for council permission and the neighbors object on everything they can think of and a few stupid one. We altered the plans and made the build more expensive and got approval. My petty revenge is more passive, but there are a few of them. The building work he wanted to stop is going to piss him off. One of their bedroom windows will have close to a 3 meters brick wall right next to it blocking light until around midday, and every time he looks out of the window it will remind him. The final petty revenge is my personal favorite. Due to the changes we had to make, he cannot extend this bedroom out to get the light back, as it would create a small inaccessible for maintenance gap between the extensions, and this would not get planning permission. This means this bedroom will have the big brick wall blocking light forever unless they essentially alter our house to the original design. Title: I had unknown language skills and it saved me from some horrible problems with a coworker. I worked in an office where I tried very hard to work well with others. The company had fair hiring practices, which was one of the reasons I liked them. Social justice parents. One week I had a bad GI infection that meant I had to spend more time than usual in the bathroom without much warning, but I told my boss and she was very supportive because I came in. I was a person who looked as vanilla as can be. But because of my background, I deliberately joined the only fraternity on campus that welcomed international members. That had an interesting advantage that would pay off 2 decades later. You see, members of our chapter spoke a language that I had taken a few weeks of in 4th grade. Not very much, but enough words stuck, but enough basic ones to sometimes allow me to understand basic sentences. Some of my fraternity brothers, who spoke this language fluently, put together a handbook of phrases in the language which would let us know for sure when they were insulting us. We got back at them by giving them nicknames based on the dirty words they had translated for us, which they found funny as heck. Right. So, the other thing you should know is that my job was a white-collar job that required me to dictate memos, or take minutes of meetings, which meant that I would tape these meetings with a mini recorder, and send the tapes to a typing pool for typing, after which I edited them or proofed them when needed. I tended to keep the mini recorder with me because we sometimes had unexpected meetings. As I was indisposed in our quite large restroom waiting for my GI to settle down, a number of individuals who spoke this language came into the bathroom and started chatting. When I heard my boss's name and familiar slurs, I pulled out the recorder and started taping. It turns out that one of the speakers was a person on our staff who felt very self-entitled, not entirely without reason, and was a bit lazy. He underperformed constantly but had a high-level company connection, so couldn't be touched. Thinking that by speaking in this language he could say anything he wanted about the individual, he went into a diatribe that mostly went past me. But it was clear he was talking about our boss in very pejorative and sexist ways. One of the other speakers tried diligently to shut him up because he was a very kind person, defending the boss, etc. But that only enraged the insulter and made him go on and on. This really pissed me off because it was clear his attitude was based mainly on sexism and the feeling that he should be boss instead. But she was in fact much more qualified for her position than this waste of space. It took me a long time to do something about this because I don't like making waves or unnecessary meanness on the job. But then my boss started getting internal hate mail slid under her door, which she found very disturbing. So I spoke to her privately one afternoon after he had left for the day. I played her the tape, translated where I could, and gave it to her. She took it to her boss, etc. She didn't take disciplinary action, which might have meant fighting his insider. Instead, she did the one thing he couldn't fight. She started calling him in for meetings about his project statuses 15 minutes before he dared leave for the day, which would then last 2 to 3 hours. We were exempt employees, so he was stuck. He hated one-on-one meetings with her because in them she could review errors he had made, which played havoc with his self-image. Interestingly, after a while, he started changing his behavior, working harder and more carefully, which shortened his meetings as he improved. The defending staff member was rewarded for his behavior at the time, which he was pleased at but never understood why. Until after I retired. I called him one day because I had heard that the problematic employee had left the company. As I signed off the call, I used a popular phrase in the language. He said, "Wait, how much language do you speak?" I told him, more than badly acting ever realized. He then got it. He just laughed and laughed and laughed. Title: Dependas and Parking in Army Housing. I was stationed in Germany. The housing for married soldiers is multi-story apartments that was never prepared for the multi-car family. Parking is a free-for-all, but each stairwell usually informally agrees to spots. If you don't live in that block, you don't know. For those that don't know, a dependa is a derogatory term for a military spouse that predates the modern-day Karen. Definitely in the same genus or family. So early in the day I'd drive a few blocks over to check on a subordinate that's not well. It's well before the end of the day and most spots are empty. I park and walk up the 4 flights of stairs. We talk for about 20 minutes and discuss an appointment I'm taking him to early the next morning. His family has one car and his wife is taking the kids somewhere else. I leave and begin walking down the stairs only to pass a lady giving me the dirtiest look I've ever received. I shrug and walk out the main door to see a car double parked behind mine. I hear a door in the stairwell slam and decide to walk back up the stairs. I ask my soldier if he knows the owner and explain my previous encounter. He looks out the window and exhaled deeply. Oh shit, that's Staff Sergeant Alvarez, wife. She's a hothead. She lives just below me. If you're nice about it, she'll move her car quickly. Jones, I can't imagine any scenario that involves me doing that. I walked back to work, finished the day and walked home. At about 9 he called me and said the car was still there and asked if I wanted him to say something. I told him not to worry. I'd see him in the morning with my other car. I got up at 4:30 and called the MP station and described the double-parked abandoned car. Had a nice breakfast. I arrived at his place at about 5:15. There was now a ticket on her car. We spent a long day at another base for his appointment. Got back around 7. Her car was now moved. He asked if I wanted him to drive my other car back over to my housing area. Nope, my wife is out of town. I'll come pick it up this weekend. At no point was I worried about vandalism. There are generally two types of cars overseas service members have. New, high-interest loan, brought from the States, trouble to park and repair. Barracks cars. Cheap, a new owner almost every year.